So I went to upload my last video and I noticed something, which is that suddenly I was at 82 subscribers, which was a bit of a leap. So I just want to thank all of you for subscribing and for sticking around. And I guess the next goal is 100. Hello there, I'm Simon. Welcome to my channel. Today's topic is all about Dungeons and Dragons, one of my favorite topics to talk about. More specifically, I want to talk a little bit about characters and character creation. Being mostly narratively focused myself, I'm convinced that you should be allowed to play whatever character you can think of, if you believe that character will make for an interesting story. And that means that it should be possible to make that character and find the mechanics to make it work. Like, build the mechanics around the character. And I am convinced that that is totally possible. These days there's so many possible mechanics and rules to pick from that you're bound to find what you need to make it work. Like, I've seen someone make a proper historically accurate shinobi, aka ninja. I've seen people play the Disney princesses very effectively. It's called Damsel's Dice and Everything Nice, and it's amazing. They're under the Pixel Circus banner these days, and why are you not watching it yet? Anyway, moving on. So I'm gonna do something that may very well become a series, which is combining D&D with something else, in an attempt to make my favorite characters from pop culture playable in D&D. And today, you guessed it, I'm tackling the son of Poseidon himself. Let's make Perseus Jackson, which weirdly hasn't been done that much. Google gave me one result that actually tried to make Percy, and the rest was more about how to run a game inspired by that world. And on YouTube there was just gameplay. That one PC I did find, by the way, did so by making him a multi-class between a rogue and a sorcerer, which I can see the sorcerer, but why the rogue? So let's give it a shot and see if I can come up with something better, or something that suits my own interpretation of the character better, I should say. Let's start with the basics. What's his race? Percy is mostly human, so it would make sense to just make him a human. But if we're making every character who's actually human, well, a human, we're gonna end up with 99% humans. So let's see if we can find something that's a little more interesting. And in this case there is indeed a race that makes sense with who Percy Jackson is, which is a half-elf. Because Percy isn't 100% human, is he? He's a demigod, which means he's half human and half god. Now, with how anthropomorphic the gods are in Greek mythology, you might well say that that's basically the same thing. But this divine heritage does give some important distinctions from the human race. So I think half-elf is, in basic D&D mechanics, the best option for Percy's race. What about his class? When I first started thinking about this, I actually thought Percy would be best suited as a warlock. Wait, what? Yeah, that's not a very obvious choice, is it? But it does make sense. Hear me out. A warlock makes a bond or a contract with a powerful being who gives them magic powers in exchange. And to me, that sounded very much like the abilities demigods get from their godly parents, like Percy being a waterbender. Also, at level 3, the warlock gets to choose a boon from their patron, and one of the options is the Pact of the Blade, which allows the warlock to make a weapon appear in their hand. And I figured that could be a good representation of Percy's sword Anaklusmos, which of course turns into a pen, and will always return to his pocket. So I figured, if I make him a warlock, Poseidon can be his patron, and I'll give him the Pact of the Blade for Anaklusmos, and I'll just select all the water related spells I can. And I thought that would make for an acceptable Percy Jackson. Problem is, warlocks don't really get a lot of water spells. And I started realizing that demigods don't actually get their special abilities because of a pact with a god, but rather because they are descended from the gods. So Warlock wasn't actually the best option available for that, and the Pact of the Blade is not enough justification to give him a level of Warlock, especially since Anaklusmos can be covered so easily by other means. It also doesn't really cover the martial side of being a demigod. Now, of course, demigods aren't necessarily fighters, but Percy certainly is, so it would be a bit of a lack if he didn't have anything to reflect that in his mechanics. So here's what I did. Instead of Warlock, I gave him a level of Sorcerer, because that makes sense with his godly heritage. Now, of course, as a sorcerer, you need to choose an origin of these powers, and my version of D&D Beyond only offered the option of Draconic Bloodline, so I ended up picking the Blue Dragon, because I thought that was the Water Dragon. Upon closer inspection, it turns out that's lightning, and there is no Water Dragon to be descended from. Oh well, it'll do. I did try to give him every water related spell in the book, which frankly still isn't a lot, but it was enough. I gave him Message, which has nothing to do with water, but this is actually a stand-in for the Iris messages. I also gave him Minor Illusion to represent the mist trick Talia did in Curse of the Titan, which I'm assuming Percy might have learned by now. It may never be relevant, but it's there just in case. Also, there's True Strike, which is more of a combat thing. And then there are 3 water spells, namely Shape Water, which is obvious, Fog Cloud, which I don't think we've ever seen Percy do, but it's something to do with water particles, and a waterbender could definitely do it, so I just went ahead and added it anyway. And in the same vein, Ice Knife. But I didn't just make him a sorcerer, because as important as the magic bit is to who Percy is, he's more of a fighting type, so I think a couple of levels in fighter is important to make a good Percy. So I went ahead and made him a level 3 fighter. Reason being that to me, his proficiency in fighting is quite literally legendary. Like, he killed a Minotaur before he even knew what the Hades was going on. On the other hand, the special abilities he has are not as well honed as the martial skills. At least that's the way I'm reading it. Anyway, as a fighter, he has a specific fighting style. Now, I'm not sure what the difference is between defense and protection, but it doesn't really matter, because neither are the one I selected for him. I ended up going for dueling, partially through a process of elimination, since the alternatives just didn't really seem to suit him. But he also dueled Ares when he was 12, so I think it's safe to say that he's pretty good at it. As far as his archetype goes, I went with Champion, because the only alternative was Gunslinger, which he is not. But also because he is the champion of the books and of the gods. He was, as far as I know, involved in 2 great prophecies, so I think calling him a champion is quite right. I think I've said most of the important stuff, but let's also have a look at his equipment. Now, usually when I gather a character's equipment, I have 3 criteria. Firstly, what is a character likely to bring with them, based on their personality, education, and background? Secondly, what might be useful, and what might be needed during a game? What situations can I imagine where it might be useful to have an item from the list on me? And thirdly, how much of this are they physically and realistically able to bring with them on a journey? And those criteria remain the same here. But because I'm basing this PC off of a character from a book, I have a lot less freedom with this. So let's just go through Percy's inventory. First thing you see is something called Antitoxin, which to me, in this case, represents the Nectar and Ambrosia, which have healing properties for demigods. The same thing with healing potions. Then of course there's the backpack that all of this goes in, and a bedroll, aka sleeping bag. A questing demigod would be stupid to not bring some armor, so here's a breastplate, which is probably a Greek linothorax. There's a lamp, aka a flashlight, a mess kit to make food, and some rations. In the books, these backpacks often get lost, but if they manage to keep it, perfect. You'll also notice the pan flute. Now, by my knowledge, Percy doesn't really play music at all, but I just figure this could have been a gift from Grover. Honestly, this is some poetic freedom on my part, but it could be fun. And then there's a short sword, which is of course an archetype, and a trident. Now, I'm not sure he should actually have the trident, because I don't think I've ever seen him use one, and he doesn't carry one with him, so it probably shouldn't be in his inventory. But on the other hand, he's the son of Poseidon, so if you want to play this character, you'll have to figure that one out for yourself. By the way, feel free to take all of this and play Percy if you want to. I'm doing this as an intellectual exercise, but if anyone wants to actually play this PC, go for it. Let me know how that goes. Share your stories. And with that, it's time for the YouTube thing. You know the drill. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of my interpretation and what you might do differently. Will you want to play this character, or will you prefer playing with them as a co-player? Or neither? Maybe you just want them to stay far away from your own game. Also, let me know if you want this to be a series and what other characters you want to see turned into D&D characters. It doesn't have to be Percy Jackson. It could be anything. Anyway, if you like this video, please consider clicking the like button so YouTube knows. And if you want more nerdiness like this, you can go check out my channel. And if you like what you see, why not subscribe? It's just 2 clicks away. And it's completely free. 2 because of the bell. Please don't forget that. And of course, you can share the video with anyone who might find it interesting. Why don't you send it to the rest of your adventuring party? I know I will. And of course, as usual, you can find any relevant sources down below, including, if I remember to, a copy of the character sheets. And of course, the links to my social pages are also down below. I think I forgot this bit last week actually. Oh well. And with that, I think I've said everything I needed to say. So, thanks for watching.